Hey YouTube, it's a wrap here. How you doing? I hope well. Let's get into it. Today I am reviewing Sweatpants Season by Danielle Allen. I decided to read this book off of a review from another YouTuber. It's like, I believe she reviewed this book 2 years ago, and I've had this book in my Kindle reads for a while. And now that I've made my 2023 resolution to read through all the books that I have and be more consistent about reading and doing this YouTube to hold me accountable, I finally decided to read this book because it was a pretty quick read and it was like a contemporary romance, and usually books like that I fly through. So this book is about I believe the main characters, I believe they're in college. That's one thing, I'll get to that in the review, but that's one thing I was confused about. I didn't know if they were just fresh out of college or if they were in college, their last year. So I don't know. But anyway, it's about these two characters, Akila, she's a freelance journalist, and she gets into this photography class with this renowned photographer, and she meets her partner Carlos. Carlos is an English teacher, and he's also an aspiring writer, and instant sparks fly, but it's a love-hate story. They hate each other because Carlos is part of this podcast that's red pill incel adjacent, or not adjacent, it pretty much is. So so because of that, she she doesn't despise him, she just doesn't she's attracted to him, but she just doesn't like him because of his association with the podcast. So pretty much they keep getting put into each other's spaces and assigned to do things together, and any romance, they end up I guess falling for each other. So in that synopsis, I didn't love this. I finished it, but it wasn't it was kind of like an eye roll as I was reading it. Did I like Akila? Akila's supposed to be this feminist, but it gave me I was like, girl, are you really as deep in your politics as you think you are? Because the way that Carlos is giving stereotypical masculinity, and it seems like the dynamic you want in your relationship is very traditional. It doesn't okay, let me just Carlos is stereotypically attractive, and she was all this is how a real man should be, and not these incel or whatever red pill guys that he hangs out with, they're just misogynist. And I don't know, I wish that she just hadn't jumped into, this is terrible, I wish she hadn't entertained the feminist talk, because I didn't actually like the dialogue. I didn't. It just felt very surface level understanding of how we understand feminism. And yeah, you shouldn't objectify and take away the autonomy that women have over their decisions and their bodies in terms of relationship and courting and dating. But also I feel she wasn't very open. There wasn't a back and forth dialogue between the way that Akila views courtship and dating in men. It wasn't it would have been cool if it was that back and forth, and it would have been nice if they explored that in the he said she said. But instead, there's a scene where they go to a bar, and the owner's son of, sorry, the son of the owner of the bar is like harassing her, and like Carlos steps in as like this, oh, I protect my woman patriarch kind of role. And it would have been nice if there was like this dialogue about like how about patriarchy and how we expect men to like show up in the world. And it would have been nice if even that dialogue showed up when Akila goes onto the show and she's going back and forth with like the host, and they're like, "You're terrible people." But maybe she was just all, I don't know. It would have been a more interesting conversation if they were all like, "Well, how like you expect a man to be this way and a woman to be this way, but it's like, okay, what if you're not that kind of man? Does that like if I wish there was just more interesting dialogue about masculinity as well as femininity, and not just like, because also feminism talks a lot about patriarchy, and there wasn't really any mention of patriarchy or like dialogue about that, and that would have been interesting. I just feel like it wasn't a very interesting dialogue about it. Like it wasn't really, that aspect of the book for me wasn't really well written. And granted, like I wish they just didn't include it because it kind of took away from the lightness of what the book I felt was supposed to be. And then number two, of the conflict between like what, you know, in romances was this like miscommunication conflict that kind of like, oh, we have to separate and not speak to each other for a while. And I felt like that conflict was, I didn't care. I'm sorry. Like Akila was crying. Sorry, I guess I should just put spoilers. But like Akila was crying and like real upset about like what the podcast had done to her sister. And in my head, I was just all like, I mean, what would you do? Would you sue? Would you cry? I would have been all like, it's not like they took a picture of her in like a dress that was like, you know, I guess that had her, that was a little bit, I guess, revealing or whatever. But in my head, I was just like, yeah, I was like, strangers saw me in this dress. Like, I think the dialogue that came with it, like the things that they had to say, the entitlement that they felt that they had on her body was the thing that was upsetting to her. But I just wouldn't have been crying about it. Like, that's how I felt. Like, I felt like it wasn't that deep. I felt like it wasn't that deep. And also, I was like, I don't know what was actually introspective about Carlos. Like, even the description of the characters, like he was just, Carlos is good looking. Carlos has all these like conventional markers of being attractive, like, you know, clear skin, a full beard, you know, he's well endowed, like all these things, but there was nothing like quirky or like that just made Carlos Carlos. Like he was just like this Prince Charming type character that like had this conflicting relationship with his frat brothers. And oh, okay, so that's was the thing, because I was just like, I can't picture Carlos. Like, what does Carlos look like? Just like I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him. He was just kind of like, for me, a kind of flat character. Like he wasn't a book bay for me. And Akila as well. Like I'm like, I can't picture Akila. I just know she has coily hair, and there was nothing very distinct that made me see Akila for Akila. You know what I'm saying? Like again, I guess that's just not super like developed writing and storytelling. And granted, give it grace, it's a Kindle read. But damn, it has like a 4 point. Like it's, I guess it's good if you want something light, I guess. But it wasn't that light. That's my thing. It wasn't that light. It talked about pretty heavy topics in a very light way, and I was just like, why even put it in there in the first place? That's what I was wondering. Like, why? Because I felt like it wasn't done well. in my opinion. That's just me. And there was like another, okay, also in the book, because I see, this is why you should write down your notes, because I was going to make another point and I lost my train of thought. Like, I felt like when she was talking about like her lusting after Carlos, like I feel like I don't, first of all, I don't like instant attraction. Like I don't. And especially if it's like a love hate, like I want you to like see like the qualities that make that person attractive. So it wasn't hitting for me. It wasn't hitting for me. Because like the moment that Akila sees Carlos, she acknowledges that he's attractive and that she is physically attracted to him. So when the whole like sweatpants scene comes, I kind of don't care, because like, girl, you're already attracted to him. So like the sweatpants thing just kind of like adds on to it. It's not like, oh my gosh, girl, you attracted to this man. Like it doesn't take you for a loop or a surprise. You know what I'm saying? Like if she's going to be like, in my head, when you read it, you think, oh, what was I expecting Akila to be? Kind of prudish, I guess. Kind of like so caught up in life outside of like relationship and everything like that, that she doesn't really like instantly see Carlos in that way. And it would be nice if, as a reader, we didn't see him in that way. You know what I'm saying? Until like she sees it. And then like we're all like, oh girl. But it's like the whole time we're all like, okay, Carlos is it. And you know that he's it. And I think it wasn't, there was no quirk. It wasn't quirky to me. I don't know. I kind of like a quirky kind of romance, I guess. Yeah. And also, this was my other point. So Carlos is in a frat. We don't know what frat. They just mentioned that like on the podcast that the two guys, Country Boy and City Boy, are his frat brothers. But in my head, because he was all like, they do good work, and they give like whoever the podcast raises money, and they use that money to like help fundraise for stuff for the frat. But in my head, I was just all like, especially, I'm just assuming that he's in a black frat. I was just like, there's so, frats in general just have so much stigma in like, especially like on a college campus, on sexual assault and harassment. I don't imagine that, one, the frat would take that money, and then two, that the frat would even align themselves with that podcast just because of like, especially black frats. I'm not in a frat sorority, but just from what I understand, that, you know, in terms of image and like branding, that black frats and sororities are very much like in tune and on it, and like very particular. And I would imagine that maybe they never talk about their frat like alliances on the podcast, but I would imagine that the frat wouldn't want to align themselves with this podcast just because of like bad branding. Like in my head, that wouldn't make any sense. So I was reading it like, would this podcast even really exist if they were in a frat? Like they just could have kept the whole like, oh, he's a frat guy alone in my head. But it also adds to like why he's so loyal. He was like, we crossed together, like we are brothers for life. But I don't know. I mean, let me not talk about, I only know about like friends that are in sororities and like family members, and how sometimes you might not like your line sister. That's all I'm gonna say. But overall, how did I feel about this book? I want to give it a 2. Yeah. Like, I finished it. I would never read. I know it's a series. Maybe there's something else by Danielle Allen. I just don't think I enjoyed the writing and some of the directions that the book took. And I think the thing that was supposed to like give it some color or give it its uniqueness was like that Akila was this feminist and like the whole topic on the red pill and incel people, but I don't feel like it was done well. Like I feel like it wasn't done well. So I can't reading it, I was just like, but girl, like, are you being introspective about your feminism and the way you like partner with men and what you expect from men within partnership? Like, are you critical about that? Are you still just reenacting patriarchy in the way that you date and you're expecting men not to be like enact this patriarchy onto you? You know what I'm saying? So in the end, yeah, I'm giving the book maybe a 2.5. A 2.5. Because it was kind of magnetic the way that Carlos and Akila lusted after one another, but it wasn't enough to save this book for me. So yeah, like a 2.5. I'm giving it some 2.5. I'm gonna start putting stars right here. So yeah, 2.5. 2.5. I don't know how to do 2.5, but okay, that's my review for Sweatpants season. I'll see y'all for another review. Hope y'all having a lovely weekend, whenever you're watching this. Hope your day is going well, okay? I'm trying to stay blessed up, okay? So, yeah, talk to y'all later. Bye.